On a previous video, I told you how Rome allows now for infinite graphs, and this means that interacting between them should be a core feature. These guys here at romegs.com make it possible with this extension. Now, I would love to show you right away how it works, but installation is so easy that let's do that first. You basically come here, copy the extension, and then you go back to your graph, and anywhere in your graph you can just paste the extension and it will work. I like to put it here in its proper place. It even has already the block ready for it. So paste, and now click yes, I know what I'm doing, and now my graph is multiplayer. Now this will allow me to do three things: copy a block to a different graph, cross-reference a graph, and send a page to another graph. The result is that you can have a network, an empire of graphs at your fingertips. Now let me show you how. Now what I did here is create a new graph called Romeler, where I will collaborate with other people, and Starscream, my private daily driver. On Starscream we installed the extension. For me to be able to move something from here to here, we also have to install the extension here. So let's do that. That's it. Okay, so once that's done, we have to set up the connection between these two graphs. What you do is Command Palette on the graph that you want to be your host graph, so to say, and go with Setup Multiplayer. You only have to do this once, but you will have to do it on both graphs. So, Setup Multiplayer Connection, this is going to be my hosting graph, so I'm just going to copy, and then I'm going to go on my peer graph and press Command P again, but instead of Setup Multiplayer, I'm gonna type connect to graph, enter. Here I take this code from here, copy, I don't know if I did that, and then I paste it here, connect, and this gives me a handshake, a new handshake from this graph, which I only have to copy here. And now both graphs are connected. Alright, so let's do this. I get this block here, which is the block that I want to share to my Rome layer, and once again Command P for the command palette, copy block to graph, and now it's going to say which of your graphs do you want to copy to. Note here that I could, if I had more graphs to share, I could copy this block to whatever graphs I wanted to, and I can even choose the page where I want to copy this block to. So in this case, let's call it sacrifice and send. Done. Let's go here, let's look for sacrifice, and here it is. Now something important to note is that this is an actual copy of the block. So the reference for the block, which in this case would be this, will not be preserved. Okay, and of course if you change your block here, it won't change here. Now if instead of a block we would like to send a whole page, that can also be done. For example, I don't know, vision board. How do we do this? Same, Command P, send page to graph, to the Rome layer, or wherever we want to send it, as many graphs as we want, send. And now we got it here. Here we go. In this case, because we're sending the whole thing, the integrity between blocks is preserved. So references, etc., everything is preserved. And if I had a vision board already on this graph, then the contents would have been merged. So we've seen how to send or how to copy a block from one graph to the other. We've seen how to copy a page from one graph to the other. But for the third, and in my opinion, the best feature that this extension has, we have to see now how to cross-reference a block from one graph into another graph. To do this, we have to take, do an extra step. And there's a few differences. So let's start with this. Going into this page, which will be created automatically by the extension, Rome.js multiplayer, and in here we find some sort of control panel. First we see what graphs are connected to our host graph. In this case it's Rome layer. Now Rome layer is here. Note what happens when I disconnect it. You see, I went out and I don't have any graph connected. What this means is that for this extension to work, both graphs have to be connected and locked in at the same time. Now let's connect back to Rome layer, and still we're not connected. That's because every time that we want to connect to a graph, we have to do that whole Command P thing. and now both graphs are connected again. There is another configuration, which is asynchronous, and look at what happens when I try to do this. It says that it's not enabled because I'm not registered at the website, etc. This is a premium feature for the extension, and it has a cost. $1 for 100 uses, as explained in here. And what do you get in exchange of this? What you get is a graph that can talk with other graphs without both of them having to be online. So Roam is closed. Let's say it's your collaboration graph, and you're working on your daily driver. It's late at night. You want to send a page, a block, a reference to this other graph. You can do that, and whenever this graph comes online, then everything will be sent here. At the same time, it allows for this third feature that we're going to talk about, which is to send a block that you have on this graph to this other graph, and to have this as a reference, as an actual reference, instead of a copy that is not really connected between the graphs. So if you're interested in this, let's get into it. Once it's set up, then you don't have to reconnect your graphs every time you start to interact with them, like you have to do for the synchronous multiplayer configuration. So the first thing that we want to do is to register with roamjs.com. This is free. Let's log in my case. Once you're logged in or signed up, you go into extensions, and on the second card here you will find your token, the number that identifies you. So what we do is we copy this token here, we come back to our host graph, and as it says in here in red, Command P, set token, here we are. It already took the token number that I have in the clipboard automatically. Just press save. Now if we go here, enabling the extension, then we are asked to pay $1. Let's do that. That's it. Now, how did that work automatically like this? Because here on my user profile under billing, I already had the card added here. So it's that easy. If not, I would have been asked to fill my card information, which would have been then saved here, I guess. Another way for you to start using this extension is to go to extensions, find multiplayer, find the synchronous mode, and here in this page you would find a button to subscribe. Okay, so there's one last step that you only have to do once, which is coming to Roam Multiplayer here, Asynchronous. We see everything is enabled, but now we have to create a network of graphs. So let's do that. I don't have any networks right now, so let's just come up with one. Let's put some password here, create, and now we have our first network. Now we can add any graphs we want to this network, and they will be able to synchronize without having to all be connected at the same time like we saw on the synchronous connection. So I want Starscream to be connected to Roamlayer. So in Roamlayer, let's go to multiplayer. Here we go. Synchronous. And again, we have to put our Roam token into this graph this one time. We even get our link here. Okay, token, save. Now we are connected to the extension, but now we have to connect to the network. So once again, we put the name of the network here, join in this case. And with that we are connected. Now if at any point you see a red dot here and the graphs seem not to connect, what I suggest is that you reload both graphs, both here and here, and probably the issue will be solved. It works really smoothly, but just in case. Now let's go back to the inbox here and to the daily notes here, because what we have done so far is to take, for example, this block and make a copy of it on this other graph, but that's a copy which is independent from the original one. We also copied the whole page from this graph to here. Now we will cross-reference blocks, in this case this one. So we focus on the block, Control P as usual, cross-reference and click. And now we come here and Control V, and it will create this syntax here, and the block has been cross-referenced. This would be like a little bit like when you right-click and you go copy block reference for referencing the graph within the graph itself. For example, notice the syntax here, and the syntax here is exactly the same for the name of the block. In here they add Starscream, and notice that when we cross-reference block within a graph, we get this little number here calling for this cross-reference. When we cross-reference a block outside this graph, we don't get the little reference number here. On the other hand, this is not a copy. This is a reference that points to this graph, to this block, I mean here. So if I change the block here and say, then we can expect this block to change. To be honest, I'm not sure if it's going to change in a little while or when I reload, but I know that if I focus on it and unfocus on it, then it gets updated. This cross-reference is only available if you pay for the asynchronous connection. If you don't, then both graphs have to be connected, as it is the case right now. If you pay for this feature here, I could disconnect this graph here, and from here let's press Ctrl P, send page or send block. Now let's connect Rumbler. Let's go to the inbox. There we go, successfully connected and successfully pasted the block. Let's go to inbox to see it, and here it is. So that's the difference. The graph doesn't have to be online all the time, and you get to cross-reference blocks. If you don't want your graphs to auto-connect, you can disable it here, and in here you get the usage that we've given this extension under my current subscription, which charges you for the minutes that the graphs are connected, the messages sent, and the networks created or rather owned. Now it's important, if both graphs are online, like is the case right now, then you don't get charged for sending messages, because that would be using the synchronous system. The asynchronous system uses the backend from the extension, and that's when you get charged. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this and that you find it useful.